Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ahsoka review, episode number 4. I am the number one Kylo Ren fanboy, Travis Snail. I'm joined by,
The Force Choke, Taylor Field.
and yes, it's the Cantina Boys.
Yeah, but come on, touching his, like his belly. It's like, oh.
Yes, we are here, the Cantina Boys, but hopefully soon Kirkland will be joining us, because after this week, I definitely got to say, hey, I think it's time for you to catch up. But yes, we're here to talk about a very, very juicy episode. Oh boy, this should be a good one. Should be interesting. Lots of things, not just one thing, not just two things, many, multiple avenues to go down to. So yes, Taylor, where can they find us very quickly?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find us in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerseCast is our Twitter. GeekVerse is our Facebook.
Yes, everything you need to know is down below. Check out, me and Dylan just dropped our side quest review / first impressions. That's just kind of our first few days with it. Next week we will have Taylor Field on, and we'll be doing a bigger review and stuff like that. So yeah, go do that. And then later on in the week there'll be a newscast. And yeah, if you want to support us, we really appreciate it. If you like what we do, thank you to some people that just started listening. If you like what we let's see here. It'd be Merrick, Taylor. It'd be Merrick. That would be, and I'll give my case and spoilers. So there you go. But yes, thank you to everyone that is new to it. If you like what we do, we're always covering this stuff. I haven't even talked to Kirkland, Taylor, or Dylan yet. I have to see what they're doing Sunday, because there is D23, but it's like a mini version of it. So I'm gonna, if they're not available, you'll probably get a Trash Told You or something like that. But if you like what we do, we cover all the geek franchises, and we have early episodes on Patreon, exclusive episodes like the X-Men 97 retro, or the X-Men 92 retro. Soon you'll be doing a Halloween retrospective, Christmas retrospectives, lots of other retrospectives starting. We have bread and butter on there. We have a lot of good stuff. So if you just want to support us and you can't, that's fine. Just hit a download. We really appreciate it. So let's get in this. As usual, we'll do our non-spoiler overall thoughts. So if you've not seen the episode, definitely, if you're a fan, you want to go watch it and then come back. But let's say you got to work, whatever it may be, you just want the overall thoughts. You only got time for a little bit. Taylor Field, you're fresh off the episode. Run me through the gauntlet tonight with these times. But what did you think of the episode?
Oh, man. Well, I immediately knew the moment that Dave Filoni was directing this episode, we're probably going to get something juicy.
Well, he didn't direct this episode, so.
I thought he did direct the episode.
No.
Well, who directed it then?
Peter Ramsey.
What?
One of the directors for the first Spider-Verse movie.
Okay, well, I'll have to check that out.
The very first thing it says when the credits roll, I think it might have been Katie, Star Wars Alliance Katie.
But Katie is one of that. I didn't pay attention
so.
to the credits. I didn't pay. The moment that end scene,
the disrespect you show to the creators of Star Wars,
I know it's fact. Like I couldn't fathom the credits, because at the end of that final scene, I was just like, oh my god! I was out of body experience. It was nuts. But yes, the episode, it was great. It was fantastic. It got a lot of fun action in there. There wasn't a lot in terms of story unraveling or anything like that. It was more or less just a little. I think I have more questions than anything kind of being answered, is what I'm trying to say. I think the story was moving ahead.
I think there's lots of story going on.
Well, yeah, it's moving ahead, but I definitely don't think that it was unraveling, giving us answers to all the questions that we have, because I feel like I got so many more questions, and I feel like the only things I really had answered was just things were progressing ahead, and then they had action in between, which is not a negative at all, because I loved everything about this episode. I really, really did. It was fantastic. There was so many moments that really just felt like a Rebels episode, and then at times it felt like we were in an alternative Star Wars universe that is out of the norm. And this isn't a spoiler, but there's a lightsaber or two that's turned on in this episode, and it's just nice to see lightsabers on screen again. I'm really, really happy and content to see that. Well, the dark saber is a lightsaber and it's its own thing. It's not the same thing as having lightsabers go on screen, and I feel like the amount of excitement I had during this episode is matched with the Luke Skywalker hallway scene from Mando season 2. I'd even put this ahead by a few points though, because we got a few extra really cool things that unfolded in this. So
I won't go that far. I can't. I have to think about that finale. I could be on board that the episode is overall better, but I don't think this is better than the Luke reveal, especially because there's a few things like you said last week, and these aren't even big spoilers, just like, oh, these people will fight. I feel like this was much more choreographed. I'm not saying it needs to be a big surprise to be an ending, but I feel like some of these surprises we had talked about where with Luke, we had no clue that was going to happen at all. That was like, none of us pitched that. So that's why I couldn't give it over that, where I'm like, some of these things we thought might happen, it's the way they happened. So yeah, I could say the episode, but the surprise, I can't get on your bandwagon for that yet. So
that's fair.
Anything else?
Visually, it was just beautiful. Like, God, it was just really, really beautiful. I love the tone. I love certain things that I'll talk about in spoilers, but just between certain fight sequences, there were callbacks to other things in Rebels that I can really appreciate too, and the way they did certain fights. And yeah, I just felt like this episode was a great tie-in to the expansive Star Wars universe. I'm really, really happy.
Yeah, with the visuals, I like the planet we're on. There's a couple shots in particular. There's this one great shot of what's Ahsoka's ship called? I can never remember this type of stuff. But...
I don't know if it has a name. It's just a Jedi ship.
Oh, the Jedi ship. But anyways, there's a great shot where there's like a bunch of trees in front of it and some fogs. Like, oh, that looks like almost like a horror movie shot. There's a great shot with Sabine's helmet and something else going on during it. So there's a couple shots where I really like. I think it didn't much, not near the back half, but the front half. They're not going to be a big spoiler. Ahsoka and Sabine fight some like droids at one point. Very dark scene. Not Game of Thrones level dark, but so dark where it's just like get this brightness up a little bit. You don't got to pretend you're nighttime. We know you're in a fucking studio. We know you have the volume. Like, just say there's a fucking moon out and light it a bit more. So I'd say the first half of the episode, there was a couple times where it's like, oh, this is so dark. Like, I can't even really enjoy it, but it did get better as it went along. But yeah, it's tough for me, and maybe we'll do this as a conversation one day to say where it ranks among all the other Star Wars Disney Plus content. I can't say it's the best because I think no matter what, that Andor episode of them breaking out with Andy Serkis like that, I don't know if you can ever, with Andy Serkis' speech, I don't think that can be topped. That's like a masterpiece thing right there. So this is not a masterpiece, but as far as Star Wars stuff, this is really fucking good. I think it's the best where you kind of hit on multiple segments of the Star Wars fandom or lore, so that's a good thing. You have a surprise or two, so that's a good thing. And you have great actual character motivations and stories going on. And some that I'm sure some people will be mad at, but what I like, and we'll get more into it, is this doesn't go for everything, right? I subscribe to, and I always like this, where Vince Gilligan said, I'm paraphrasing, but some sort of quote. He's the creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And he just said, if your characters you like are doing things that you don't want them to do, that makes the best stories. Now, I'm not saying I wanted Yoda to chop off Luke's head in Dagobah. It has to make sense, but that's why I love in this episode, there's one choice in particular. I'm like, okay, we have some actual fucking consequence with one of our main characters, so that's great to see. It just feels like it's an actual living, breathing plot, just not Mandalorian on the fucking volume just shooting some guy and talking to Jack. Like, it just feels like this is an actual story, which is good. So this is by far, I should have said, the best episode. I would say it's probably a top 5 Disney Plus episode. I have to stew on it a little bit, but yeah, the villains continue to be great. They are climbing all the time. I can't remember. I don't want to do it again. I think we talked about last week where Disney Plus, the villains for Star Wars haven't been the greatest, but they're easily, like Baylan and Shin are easily. And Shin especially, man, she's climbing way up. What a fucking standout episode. I know we're probably just going to have them fucking just both killed killed easily in the finale. I really hope not, but I love that you said Rebels, and I've said this a few times, but this... if we ever get a Knights of the Old Republic series, this is the type of tone and feeling I want. It had that. So yeah, I think it has really everything you could want. I'm sure there's some people that might not like it, and that's fine. But for me, I was very happy with it. I have to wait and see, because I remember that I was super high on that episode when we did Boba Fett, and obviously there was the Mando Luke episode, right? And that's a big contention because some people say, oh, it's not a Boba Fett episode. I didn't care because I didn't like Boba Fett. The problem was of how they followed up on, for me, Cat Bane and some Mando stuff and some Grogu stuff I didn't love, and it's hurt that episode, because at that point it's like, oh, this is the best Disney Plus content we've ever gotten. And then I went, no, it's aged very poorly after all this stuff. And even with deepfake Luke, there's times where you see like clips going around again, you're like, oh right, his mouth was not moving the best. So that's where, for me, great episode by itself, but it still is going to have to be with the follow-up. Even how it very ends scares the shit out of me, because there's stuff where I go, man, this could really take a turn into stuff I don't like. So by itself in a pocket, very good, but I need to wait and see, because both Marvel and Star Wars, I think, have a problem sometimes with sticking the landing of their series. So right now for me, it's been the first 2 episodes were good setup. I really liked episode 3 and then 4. So far you could say every episode for me has been better than the last, but this, as of right now, really a good home run here. So yeah, shout out to Peter Ramsey, shout out to Dave Filoni, because yeah, he did write this one, but I think it kind of has everything you want. It has that epic Star Wars feel that also still makes me wish this was on the big screen. You know, there's some things that I still go, this one I understand because the ties to Rebel, why maybe it's better to do as a TV show, but I really hope when we get a movie, we are getting these sort of vibes again. So yeah, I thought it was a great episode, great halfway point. Let's see what they can deliver, and there's a lot of things to talk about, and we're going to talk about them right after this first ad break. So if you've not seen it, bow out, come back later. We'll be here. We'll be right back. And we're back. So we got to start at the end. I don't care. You know, there's so much. There's the villains to talk about. There's the thing Ren did. There's the fucking Merrick thing. There's this episode, like, sometimes, and this is where I'll say in the best ways, and this is where when we get into Sabine's choice, I feel like that's, and not, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing Ahsoka to Game of Thrones or House of Dragon. I don't think it's that level, but that's where it feels like when we would have some of those best episodes, it's like, oh, there's 5 to 6 things that happen in this episode that are really great or intriguing. And that's what happened in this episode. But we got to go with the ending, which to me is the most intriguing and scary, because I don't like at all what we're doing here. But I'm always willing to say, let's give it a chance. Let's see. So we'll get to it, but pretty much Ahsoka gets like a cliffhanger. She gets Hannibaled. She gets thrown off the cliff, and there's a cool shot where they're showing waves, and then they kind of start to turn a little blue, and they start to pan to the left, and it's more like force waves. And then you see her laying there. She's in a sort of kind of, you know, I don't know how to describe it really if you've not seen it, but it's a very solar crazy sort of, it's the world between worlds, but I'm trying to describe it for people that haven't seen it, but you're in spoilers, so you should have seen it. But yeah,
like
it's
doing mushrooms or something like that.
pretty much very Mario Space Odyssey, sort of that sort of thing, or Galaxy Odyssey. That's what, or no, there's Odyssey and there's Mario Galaxy. There you go. Put them together, and that's what you get. So you get that, which hashtag Trash told you, because last week you said you weren't going to see that again. And I said, oh, you're definitely going to see the world between worlds. You can go play the tape, which I'm surprised that we got it right now. But so one, we have to talk about, like, how did she just even get there, which I think can be up to debate, because who knows with Ezra, and like I feel like Rebels, I don't know, it feels very random. But of course, once we got there, I felt, okay, this is what's going to happen, and it did happen, where you hear a voice, you get Hayden Christensen saying hello Snips, or whatever the fuck, that's her name, right? Snips or whatever.
Snips,
yeah, Snips, goddamn. But he says, I didn't think you'd be here so soon, or something like that, or at this time. She turns around, there's Hayden Christensen, de-aged this time, but he's looking like Revenge of the Sith era. It looks like pretty much before he's going to turn, not evilness, but just like the hair, the costume, everything like that. So, Taylor, I'll throw it to you as far as, what do you just feel? Because we knew we were getting Hayden Christensen at some point, but what do you feel about his inclusion in this point, and what do you feel about the world between worlds? Because I'm sure we're going to go back and forth on this a bit.
The world between worlds made me think, okay, it has something to do with it being her grabbing the map. And I feel like because she touched that map and it has a whole array of the witchcraft and some crazy shit going on, and they really emphasized her holding the map, or like her not holding the map, but her hand, and just like kind of like the damage that she sustained. So
because even though we just watched it, I can't remember how Ezra got there in Rebels.
What do you mean?
How do you get to the world between worlds?
Oh, that was on Lothal, right? So the Jedi Temple?
It was the Jedi Temple, okay.
Yeah, so whatever, like, I don't know if it is witchcraft or whatnot. It's hard to say. It could honestly be just a vision in her memory, and it's just taken her to that place because it's such a powerful place. I really don't know. Yeah, it's just, it was not expected. I really did not anticipate seeing the world between worlds, and visually, live action, it just looked beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So yeah, just her in this position now, and just how the scene had to cut off right then and there, it just really, really sucked.
Wow.
The thing that I just had to pull it up here too because I had to note this. The Anakin we see here is not rocking the Revenge of the Sith scar. So this is
That's true.
pre that.
It is, yeah, you're probably right. That works better because I feel like he's even kind of on the edge in Revenge of the Sith, like if you meet him there. But to play semantics, I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be in the era, but you do remember when they did the first deep fake of Luke, and they did the New Hope version of Luke, like pre Mark Hamill accident, remember? And it was weird because he's like, his face is different in Return of the Jedi Empire, and then when he gets to Mando, his face is like looking like Luke from A New Hope. Like, what happened? So I think you're right, that's on purpose, but there's always like a small % chance that's a mistake. I think you're right, but I'm just saying they have made those mistakes before facially when they shouldn't.
It very well could be a mistake, and it's weird why that's like it's weird why they would make a mistake like that, because in the Clone Wars movie, when Ahsoka's first given to Anakin, he's got his scar. So it's peculiar. It's very, very peculiar.
Yeah. What is a scar? Yeah. So.
But I mean, yeah, de-aging. It's just, Christ, it looks really, really good. But
does it? I think it looks good enough.
Looks really, really good, especially because it's not in like a very lighted setting. It's dark and it's a little bit illusion-y and whatnot. So yeah, I think it definitely helps instead of hindering. But there's so much to take away from it. Like, what is the conversation that's going to unfold here? Yeah, it's just I don't know. This is just so uncharted.
Well, I have 2 points. One, the conversation, I hope next week, and I know something might happen next week that you and I have heard, and I have to see how that goes because I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to spoil. We'll get to that next week. That's what I'm telling Kirkland, that he should try to catch up, because if that thing does happen, good or bad, we'll talk about it. One, I'm most excited for, I would just be down literally if it was not an hour, 32, 28 minutes of nothing else. Nothing. Don't see Thrawn, don't see Sabine. If it's just her and Anakin talking, going over things, because I know you say you didn't agree, but for me, that's what I was missing in Obi-Wan. You see Qui-Gon and like, well, follow me, and it's like, man, I want to know just even a little bit. I don't need the whole episode, like just a little bit of what would they talk about, like what was, and I know Qui-Gon sees something, but still, it's different when you're conversating here, right? So the idea of like even Ahsoka just saying something like, oh, I met your son, and having fucking Hayden Christensen talk about his son, because that's never happened. There's so much juice there from a character perspective that I really hope they tackle. Will they? That's why I'm all about the follow-up, because I don't know. I've seen Star Wars tackle it, I've seen it not. Remember how excited we were for Rise of Skywalker? Like, man, those conversations between Palpatine and Kylo Ren, those are going to be some great convos. They didn't really talk at all. They just like forced talk. I'm like, oh, my boy. Like when I heard my boy in the teaser, I'm like, fuck, we're going to get some juicy like throne room, Ben Solo, Palpatine. Like this could, in a sense, be his like grandfather. We've talked about, right? Nothing. It's just like, oh, well, he wants him to kill you, but Rey, we should fucking take out the Palpatine. So, and we never know Star Wars, but then you get certain scenes that does happen. Even in Rise of Skywalker, I'd say with Han Solo and Kylo Ren, it's a Force vision, but still there's something there. So we'll see which way it goes. That's what I'm wanting. If it's not the whole episode, that's fine. Just at least start with a conversation. I have to go to you now because I was completely expecting, okay, we're going to get him, whether it is by, a vision of a Force ghost, whatever, but he's a dead man. He's dead. He's there. He's not glowing. He's not a Force ghost here. He looks very much the same way when Ezra and Ahsoka were in the World Between Worlds, and that was, hey, this is Ezra in our timeline, and this is Ahsoka who's now taken out of the Vader timeline alive. So it's like it's two living beings together, right? So Anakin is not... He's not a ghost. I would assume he's not dead. And this is what scares the shit out of me, but I will wait and let you give your take first.
You're scared of an Anakin from the past, like maybe an Anakin that didn't turn to the dark side, or like a good Anakin come in here and might come into real time.
Fine, I'll do my... Oh, that's... They won't do that. That'd be very scary. If like fucking Hayden Christensen just joined the show,
just joins the cast. Sabine, Ahsoka, and Anakin on an adventure.
Yeah, imagine the finale is Hayden, like Anakin pulling up to where Luke's training Grogu, and just like son and like father, like. Oh my god,
PTSD.
it'd be awful. So I don't think they'll go that far. My worry is, as I've said before, and I know Filoni's a George guy, and he's my Padawan, but I said I'm never a fan, even though I don't love all the prequel stuff, of them fucking with George's stuff. Go and do your own things. The idea that, like you said, if he has no scar, there could be an insinuation almost that, because we know he does like Lotus and the father and the son and all this type of stuff, right? I don't know if I like that Anakin. What I'm worried is Anakin's going to have the knowledge of the world between worlds before Revenge of the Sith. And I feel that if he would see, because when you're in World Between Worlds, do you like how much do you see? And this is why I don't like time travel. I don't like this at all. So that's why for next week the execution has to be great, because I don't like this. But like, how far can you see? How much can you not see? I don't know. So that's a fact of like, if there's any inkling that he could see himself becoming Vader and killing Padme, all this stuff, it's just like, I don't know how they're gonna skirt this line of. I don't think, and if I think that's what they're gonna do, I don't think I like that Anakin would have went to the World Between Worlds before Revenge of the Sith. I really don't like that. I feel like that is a sort of retconny thing. But what are you taking that Anakin's? Because like I said, he's not a Force Ghost, so I feel like he's there unless they just kind of cheat and say, oh well, Force Ghosts just kind of look alive here and stuff. Like if they do something like that, great. But if he's there literally as an Anakin in the World Between Worlds, like what is your read on the situation?
Oh, it's tricky. And just trying to even indulge in the dialogue, I didn't expect to see you so soon. Like there is something going on there.
Yeah,
Fanboy Clay, you're right. He did see himself as Vader in the Clone Wars,
but that's different from having a vision of like a scary guy to the World Between Worlds. Don't you see like the timeline of like your life and other people's lives? You can. So it's not.
No, I guess
That's
you
what I mean.
could,
What can you see?
but like. It depends. Like they would have to explain that superbly well, because like you're telling me Anakin over all these other Jedi Masters and stuff got access to the World Between Worlds and went in there. Like I feel like if anyone's gonna get there first, it'd be Yoda, but like they keep that
fucking
secret from
Ezra
him.
went there. If Ezra can get there, Anakin can get there. Ezra's like a bitch Jedi. Sorry.
Yeah,
He's
but
like,
that's
low
in
tier.
completely different means though too. I would say like it was easier for Ezra and Kanan because of just the way things unfold for them. They found an ancient Jedi temple. Like Anakin's not intentionally going looking for these ancient Jedi temples. He's not looking into the ways of the Jedi and trying to access time travel and whatnot.
But they weren't doing that when Lotus, right? With Lotus, they kind of just stumbled upon it, and then a bunch of stuff happened, right? So that's where it could be that.
What is Lotus? Sorry,
or am I screwing up? What's the planet with the brother and the daughter?
Mortis.
Thank you. I knew it was
Lotus.
a Tuss.
What the fuck is Lotus?
I said it earlier and you didn't say anything. So I'm like, I got it. Mortis. They weren't like Anakin and Obi-Wan didn't set chart to be like, we got to go find Mortis and the son and whatever, right? The brother and the sister. They just found it. So it could be a situation like that where he just stumbles upon it, right? They're looking into things. Also, they might not be ancient temples. They could be maybe in Clone Wars, but it could be something.
True. That's why I kind of think that maybe we're seeing a form of Anakin in a light that Ahsoka remembers him as. Ahsoka doesn't want to remember him as like this grudged and like battle worn, torn Jedi that just really got angry.
He's like the half dead one from Rebels. So
yeah,
you're like saying like Troy that he could be an illusion of some kind.
I think it could be an illusion because first of all, we need a proper explanation of the World Between Worlds. I think that could be just a visual pinpoint of her past that she like honed in on for this, as she's obviously is like drowning or had this like hit her head on the cliff or whatever. So she created the setting in the World Between Worlds, and now I think that it for sure could be just an illusion, and that illusion is that she remembers Anakin being in this way, being this caring and looking like really, really hopeful and passionate individual and Jedi Knight, not Master. Sorry. So I think
that didn't happen.
No.
That didn't happen.
So I think that's what it is, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were to be cheesy about it at the end of the episode, be like, oh, it looks like that wasn't an illusion, maybe there was some truth to it, but it's all ambiguous and leaves it up to like the viewer to decide. But I don't think she's in the World Between Worlds right now, and I don't
really. It looks exactly like it.
Oh, it is, but what I'm saying is though I think that it's just a painted like background of her memory that's just she's been pulled in for this experience, something that's probably calming or whatnot. Because I mean, I think it parallels good too. Like the last time she almost died, she got pulled into the world between worlds, and so here she is now. Unless
I was gonna say, can you argue that she just died here again, and somehow Anakin's pulling her out? Which I don't like that at all.
Well, I
don't
was
want
gonna
that.
say you totally could have that, and that would be like, what
No.
the fuck? So,
because that would be so infuriating to me. Because that could just mean like.
Ahsoka's just invincible. Every time she
Well,
dies, someone's gonna pull her out.
Well, that and just Anakin, like the second he killed Mace Windu, and he's like, "What have I done?" He could literally just go in the other room like about time, and be like, "Hey, I got to figure this out for a second. I know not the other. Well, actually, I don't know, right? Because with this place that Balin was this a Jedi temple of some sort, or was it just Dathomir witch planet? Like,
No, this was Henge. This was just a Dathomirian place.
okay,
Just the map.
so I assume you'd have to be by something force sensitive, but I'm sure Anakin could find. He fucking found Mortis, so I'm sure he could find some place that, like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't kill Mace Windu. I know that's the idea and the thinking, but it's just like I just don't buy it. Even when he gets all burnt up, you're telling me this motherfucker wouldn't go back and be like, I'm not going to go for the high ground this time. Like, that's like Anakin was so fucking infatuated with killing Obi-Wan and getting Padme back. How many comics have done that where he's so obsessed with like Padme, and he sees Padme ghost, and he sees Padme's like Keira Knightley double, and he thinks that's like, there's no way, to me, the same way Palpatine was obsessed with making sure you could live after death. Vader, if he knew anything about the world between worlds, he's jumping in there like fucking time traveler Guy Pearce, trying over and over again.
He's
like
going back to the Old Republic to kill all the Jedi.
Yeah, and he's the type of guy that when Ahsoka in Rebels says, "Hey, you can't pull Kanan out here because if you were to, that would screw everything up, and you would die, everyone else would die." Anakin would be the guy that would still pull Kanan out, like, yeah, but I need him. And then like in this era, in this about to turn era, like you said, the scar, who knows? And I think it would be smart if it was a little further away from Revenge of the Sith, because like I said, he is so. I guess they do talk in Clone Wars, right? She was around in that era. Like they see each other like mere hour. Is it mere days or hours before the? Or do they not see each other in that final Clone War? No, she sees Obi-Wan, right? She doesn't see Anakin. Remember in the last episodes of 7?
Yeah, she sees Anakin when Anakin gives her the lightsabers, and then he hightails it to Coruscant.
Yeah, so it's nothing too big there. Like, it is big, of course, but I mean, like, she doesn't have, like, she's not, like, in the next door while he's killing Mace Windu or something, so they get separated. So that's where I think they have to be tricky, and I think you made a good point that they just literally have to explain it the same way some people complain and say, hey, the show goes too much on the Rebel side. Time travel, and I wonder how much they're going to say time travel or what the deal is. However they explain it, you're going to get a whole new section of fans to introduce this. So one, you have to actually just introduce the concept, and like you said, even explain more. What is it? Two, you'll get a whole bunch of people like myself that's going to backlash and don't like it, depending on how they do it. So I honestly think they're going to pull the fucking bullet. I think they're going to pull the trigger, and I think they're going to have this as like Anakin has had knowledge of the world between worlds, because even Filoni's like, oh, like promoting the show, he got asked like, who's the most powerful Jedi of all time, and he goes, oh, it's Anakin. But it's like, to me, it's like that doesn't count. He's not a full Jedi because he killed a bunch of fucking kids, you know. But to me, that would be a very Filoni thing to do, good or bad. So for me, it's all down to execution next week, but I think they could do some stuff that would really, luckily, like I said, now I headcanon this as like Star Wars What If now, because there's been enough mistakes where I'm like, okay, I don't want to think about this as like the main continuity. But if there is something of, again, this is an Anakin who talks to an Ahsoka in the future and then just goes back to sleeping with Padme, making a bit like, it just, that would, my headcanon already is semi-broken when I watch those movies and I try to piece together and be like, right, he's Ahsoka's master, which in the show they try their best. In the movies, this guy's not fit at all to be fucking anybody's master. No ifs and buts. So like that's where to me the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, Attack of Clones, it never truly works. So the same thing, if I have this knowledge of, well, Anakin's burden on Mustafar and he could go back and change things, not going to be a fan of that choice. And it's going to definitely take this series down a lot of points because I just think that's too big of a leap. I hope it is more an illusion. How would you feel if, yeah, Anakin, the whole time we've known him and Vader, he knows of the world between worlds, how to access it?
Well, you're thinking of it in a very linear narrative, and the only way that I would actually embrace this is if there was like an alternate like time, like Star Wars timeline where like, hey, this Anakin did not follow the dark side and he was actually stayed like on the light side. He made that he made the choice not to kill Mace Windu, and they took.
But we haven't
Palpatine
seen
down.
that in World Between Worlds because we've only seen the ones. But we only saw because I agree with you. Like time's not linear, but the way Ahsoka and Ezra saw it, it was linear because it was going event to event to event, right?
It is. So it just makes me wonder. Okay, like does that mean somewhere else along the line someone did something? And it changed and created a new
Ben
timeline.
Solo.
I don't know. Yeah, Ben Solo. There's
he was
so many
born.
different options. Maybe fans are getting what they wanted, and they're going to retcon and rewrite the sequel trilogy. I don't know, but
I don't want that. I still think I would like it if they the only reason I'll accept this. You know what? I'll take that back. I would prefer this to be a multiverse Anakin Skywalker versus our Anakin Skywalker knowing between the world between worlds. I would actually accept that more. That's still that I don't think Star Wars needs multiverse. And the only way I'll accept it really is this if this finally gets us like Star Wars Legends or a what if show, like an animated show like we have with Marvel. We talk about all the time. How many scenarios with all the prequels, sequels, original, the comics, Clone Wars, how many stories could you tell? It's infinite. How many times talk about what happens if Obi-Wan turned bad and Anakin? What happened if like Palpatine didn't have Anakin? We talk about Order 66, right? Like everything we talk about, I would like that. But that's where I think like what are you leaning towards that you think is going to happen with this Anakin?
I'm gonna stand firm on my theory that and lean towards the way that it's her remembering Anakin in a way that she feels comforted to, and that we're gonna get him bestowing some dialogue or some form of information to her, probably and it probably will be dialogue that we've seen before, or at least something that'll be reassuring and comforting to her, because again, I'm telling myself at this point that it is all in her mind and it is an illusion. So
I don't think this is all in her mind. There's no way. Because it's not like the Rey cave or Luke cave. Like we've seen this before, and it brought her back to life. If this was the first time, I'd say, "Oh, it is." But this place brings people back. It's like Pet Sematary.
It does, but it's the context here, because we didn't get an explanation of how she transported into the world between worlds. And if it is because she touched that map and there was witchcraft going on, and it like opened up a gateway into that realm for her, then I would buy into that, and then we can look at this as being an actual Anakin. But then there's the devoided scar that's not there, so that poses more questions, and I feel like it's a lot to have to explain. To me, I like the idea, and maybe that's why I'm so biased and sticking with it, is that it is an illusion. She is just seeing him as what she wants to see in a comforting way, and he'll just kind of give her some advice, and she'll like wake up, and then maybe that's
drowning. She still dies.
Yeah.
It's like a life flashing before her eyes situation.
Yeah, but it being a linear compared to multiverse, like it can get so convoluted in that, and that's its own thing. It's just going to be very interesting what they do, and they have to do it very, very smart, because like you alluded to, this could really alienate, or it could really bring on a lot of Star Wars fans. And they have to be
more
very
red eye
careful.
thumbnails coming if they screw this up.
A lot. So it's going to be very, very tricky how this unfolds. I just know at this point I'm very excited for it. We got them both live action together.
Yes.
It's just so crazy.
I was gonna say, yeah. Aside from that, two things. One, actually, I'm wrong. It might get those red eye thumbnail people excited because they will rock the Star Wars is rebooting the franchise. They're starting over.
Oh, yeah.
You know they'll do that. They'll do some sort of, you're going to get a show with Rosario Dawson, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. Again, I'd be so down with the Clay talked about, and I do remember that being a thing of there was a rumor of the World Between Worlds show, which, again, I'd be so down for that. Even if I doubt they would, but imagine if they one-upped. They do animation, but imagine if they one-upped Marvel and did these episodes live action, and you did like a what if like Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka teamed up to take down, like Ian McDermott's still around, Samuel Jackson keeps on playing Mace Windu. Like that'd be a fucking event of like, see something like this. They won't do it. They'll do animation. That's fine. So I have two questions for you. One, what is your percentage that we see him as Vader next week?
I think it's high. I think there's a lot more going on in this scene that I think we're kind of really aware of.
Big penises in the background.
Yeah, big penises. So, no, I think there's a high chance we'll see some sort of Vader in here.
What's your percentage?
I would probably say like 65, 70%.
65. I'm saying 100%.
100%.
You're telling me that there's no okay? No, I'll go 99 because you know why? Because Filoni, I thought for sure was gonna give us Vader versus Maul, and he had the fucking chance to, and he didn't. He should have. As all the time I give Star Wars crap for fucking fan service, the one I really wanted, I didn't get. I think them not doing, like, if it's a vision and let's say something goes dark for something and she thinks about what happens, if you don't have I'd be shocked if they don't get a live action Vader and Ahsoka mini fight in like the World Between Worlds or something like that, right? I know we've heard rumors of other things, but that's not Vader. If you don't have that suit, I'd be very, very surprised. But that's all. I'll say 99% because I was surprised by Maul and Vader not fighting. So maybe not. I just think that's a money shot. I think that's like people going nuts. Like I think that's something you do in live action. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but
I can get behind that. You make a really good point. When you look at the scene of Anakin, there's a couple interesting things because obviously he's got his signature arm is gloved and all that, but no scar. And when you look at his lightsaber, that was a big thing too. His lightsaber, I'm pretty sure, is Darth Vader's lightsaber because his
or it's not Anakin's, at least.
No, because this was all silver, and then he built it was very similar, very much. I'm not going to say identical, but very much a similar build to his Darth Vader saber. But it had silver in the middle, and then it was black, black on the other parts. And when you look at his saber here, that's what's very much so what it is. Again, no scar, and then you have one thing that really tips me off too is because when he's like, or when she's like Anakin, and then he kind of smiles, but as he turns like his head, you see the shadow. You see the darkness, like a shadow, kind of coat over his face, and then it cues Darth Vader theme song and whatnot. So,
and we got Leia's. I think there was like a Leia Han theme in the credits too. I was listening to the whole thing, and it was hitting some original stuff in there. So. Yeah, you just hear Qui-Gon from the distance, Ahsoka, drop! But no. So I was going to say, well, I guess I'll ask you this one too. A family that says, what if Anakin is a force projection from the past? Anakin doesn't know what's beyond the portal, so he's sent as a projection a la Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi. It's kind of tough because that's a lot you have to explain there, but at the same time, good or bad, because some people take it to task, the Force is a very mysterious, you can do whatever you want with it thing, right? We still don't know, and we will never know how Ben Solo talked to Han Solo in Episode 9. For everything we've learned of the Force, it makes zero sense. I have headcanon it, or at least I take it how in the movie, Kylo Ren says it's a memory. So it's almost like a memory replaying. So the way Clay's pitching it, like, it's almost a projection, and like you, Taylor, said, it's like what Ahsoka remembers him as. I feel like you could get a little bit of what happened with Ben Solo, where he remembered that moment with his dad, and he just remembered the good stuff. He didn't remember stabbing her and stuff. He just remember, like, even in then, he doesn't say, I love you to his dad and stuff. Like, he replays that whole thing in his mind and doing it differently. So I could get on board with it's kind of some sort of consciousness or some projection. I think, like I said, it has to be careful because I don't like knowing if Anakin has that knowledge of, oh, I went and talked to Ahsoka, I wonder what happened. I think that's just kind of odd because I feel like you would have to stew on that a little bit more, but that's what I was going to ask you before we move on to some other stuff. How would you feel about if they do that though? Because I said I wasn't a fan. How do you feel if they say Anakin has had knowledge of the World Between Worlds of all the time we knew him, and OG trilogy, Rebels?
I'm not a huge fan of that because, again, I do feel like he is a compromised individual that will make rash decisions to save the ones he loves because he's very passionate. So,
and that would be a rash decision, jumping in that portal real fast. Yeah,
a hugely rash decision, and he would definitely use it.
He's pencil diving into there.
Oh, he is. But to speak upon what you mentioned, I think that's a great point with Kylo Ren or Ben Solo because he has that
force memory
with the force memory. Yeah, and I think that's very, very powerful because you can also look at it in the sense where he says like my mother's gone, and I think that's when you like. It wasn't a ghost because Han Solo is like, your mother's gone. Like, you're like, kind of acknowledging it in that moment because
Yeah, and he's saying stuff that he didn't say. He's like, "Oh, but what your mom stood for." It's like he didn't say any of this in what is it, Force Awakens. Like Han Solo had new lines too, so it was almost
Yeah.
going off Ben's like feeling in the moment, you know.
yeah, and again, this is what I attribute to Ahsoka here. You know, same context. You got water, ocean crashing around,
Yeah.
near death
It's the
experience.
water.
It's the water. Yeah, so it just gets the memories flowing.
That'd be so funny. Like if you're force sensitive and you jump in the water, you can have like these baths going on and stuff. The AI riddle room. That's a scary name, but a nice picture there. It says Anakin had dark robes, but like don't those robes kind of just match what he had in Revenge of the Sith even before he turned? Right? Like he was kind of darker already before he chopped Mace's hand. I'd say, right? Like he's wearing a lot of dark brown.
He had very dark robes.
Yeah, so I think it's just that era of end of Clone Wars, before Revenge of the Sith, but maybe they could be darker. But yeah, it's interesting the lightsaber that people point out that it could be the Vader, or you would point out, and I saw people talking about that. That's very fun. So I think so. Next week, do you think that it's going to be an overall episode with everybody, or do you think it's going to be primarily just a them two episode, or them two and like visions of the past, like a Ghost of Christmas Star Wars past, you know?
I would love it if it was just those two talking. I'm not saying I need like Anakin's like, Ahsoka, I need your help. Come with me. And they go like, let's fight a Clone Wars mission or something like that. I don't want anything like that. Although I would.
Yeah,
eat it
you
up.
do. Yeah, I was gonna
I'd eat
say
it
you'd
up.
be creaming your jeans if like Commander Cody's on screen, like, what do you want me to do? And they're like, yeah, see, you're already gone. And then they get to bring Ewan back again, and he's there. Like they
chef's
could,
kiss.
they could.
Sam Jackson there too. The whole
Yeah.
Jedi Council clones.
Easily.
Oh my
yeah,
god.
get
But,
them all back.
I
Fucking Tamara Morrison's there with his
Oh
teeth
my
as
God.
Django.
I would definitely be on board to have just a simple episode of them just talking. Like you said, I think there's so much that you could really exploit with that in a very organic Easter egg, just crazy Star Wars fandom way that would just be so wonderful. Like you said, have Luke be mentioned. Having Anakin talk about Luke would be so
have to.
juicy. Yeah, it
Yeah.
would be wonderful. Or talk about Leia. There's so much new dialogue that could be explored in
Leia.
this. Especially because we know that whether or not Ahsoka is privy to the fact that Leia is also a Skywalker, I don't know because we haven't had that. But she definitely is obviously aware of Luke and knows Luke's stat or like position in the family. and
Yeah,
whatnot.
because it must be. I don't know how it gets out there. It must be because at the time of Last Jedi, everyone knows they're related. But at the same time, the whole Vader thing happened, and then she wasn't a fan of that. So maybe it happens around that time when the Vader stuff comes out, and that politically hurts her. And then
Yeah.
Area Room says yes, but when he's redeemed in the original trilogy as light robes, as Force Ghost. He does, but I don't know what that means for this conversation. Because if we're talking about him just being like if he's in the Revenge of the Sith era, that would make sense. That why his clothes are like that. And if you're saying if it's like an alternate Anakin, I guess for me, I could still say he's redeemed because, like I said, even Revenge of the Sith and Clone Wars, he's still wearing like the brown and black while being on the good guy's side. So there could be some significance, but I just think they're going with a look that is. I think that's the classic look. I don't think people think of Hayden with the bead or the braid. I think people think of Revenge of the Sith Hayden when they think of Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. Take that back.
Yeah, I would agree. Plus, I mean, he's wearing those like Jedi robes because it's a festival, celebration. Gotta look good.
God, just creepy Anakin in Return of the Jedi. God damn, George, why did you do that? Let's see here. Anything else on it? Because I know it might come up again, but anything else specifically on Ahsoka and Anakin?
Just gotta tread carefully.
Oh yeah. Next week, I'm very, very curious. That's gonna good, bad, or ugly. It is gonna I feel like it's gonna be an episode that divides people unless they right away establish it's a vision. Then you can go ham. But if they start making choices, whether it's multiverse, whether it's Anakin having knowledge, whether it's fucking Anakin coming back to fight Balin and Shin, but there
We'll
could
take
be
them together.
yeah, there could be a lot of stuff going on, so we'll see. But yeah, let's take our next ad break and then we'll break down the rest of the episode because there's a bunch of other juice happening, so we'll be right back. And we're back. So Taylor, where do you want to go? You got Sabine, or I'll give you the villains, or Merrick, which kind of ties into the villains.
I know where I want to start. We missed it last week, but Thrawn's
Yeah.
still coming.
Hashtag Thrawn Watch 2023. I thought for a chance we might see him, but the big cameo at the end was Anakin. I thought we might get that near the end, but yes, Thrawn did not come in this episode. He hasn't come in episode 1. He didn't come in episode 2, and he didn't come in episode 3. I don't think he's going to be coming in episode 5 either, but Thrawn Watch is still happening. Thrawn is still coming, everybody. Thrawn will be here soon. Lots of names drops this episode, but yeah, he'll hopefully come soon because people are waiting on him. They're getting some blue balls right now, but I think we're definitely getting more a smaller appearance by him the way, because now we're halfway through the season, so I think he could have a juicy episode, but I think he's not going to be the main villain because they will obviously save him for the movie. Probably Mando season 4 too, I imagine. Maybe we've heard rumors of Ahsoka 2 season 2, so I don't know if that's going to happen before the movie or after. The strike kind of throws a bunch of stuff in the wind, so we'll see. But yeah, hashtag Thrawn Watch 2023. So what's next?
Next, Merrick.
Yes,
I
how
can't
about
wait.
Merrick?
That's fucking great.
You lead the way. You lead the way.
I feel like as a Star Wars fan, I really should have prescribed and deep dived more into it. But after like thinking like, oh, maybe it was an Ezra, maybe it was like a Starkiller equivalent. At that point, and I really didn't put too much merit in that. I really just stopped caring and didn't pay mind. I genuinely looked at it as just an Inquisitor, just another villain thrown in. And the more people were going crazy and excessively stupidly finding like who it could be and all these random theories, I really just zoned out and thought this is just absolute cuckoo. And whatever this character is, I'm sure it'll be cool, but it's probably not going to be anything major. And sure enough,
Could have been what's his name, Din Garja or however. Who did we find last week? What was the guy's name from Revenge of the Sith?
Sin Dragon or whatever.
Sin Draga. Could have been him, you know?
Yeah, it could have been him. But I think that this was wonderful. I think it's a great callback to several things because the fight between Obi-Wan and Maul, I think there was a great callback connection between these two fights. And I would also say between Ahsoka and that Inquisitor from Tales of the Jedi. I think there was obviously great parallels there. But just the art, and this is a semi-segue, not a segue, but a semi-just offshoot. The art of the lightsaber battles was just wonderful. I am such a sucker for when they're standing and they're changing their stances, and that's a big thing too from Rebels that I really liked when Maul was fighting Obi-Wan. And you just get that out the wazoo. I was just eating it up, left, right, and center. It was so juicy.
I feel like to me this is one of the best. No, I won't say fights, all of them. I'll say the episodes are some of the best representation because I feel like you get the very flaky newcomer learners with Shin and Sabine, just like very much like Kylo and Rey in the Force, right? When Rey's just kind of swinging, Kylo, he hasn't had a lightsaber fight before, so he's just like enjoying this and stuff. So you got that. If you want like the fast prequel stuff, I feel like you get a little bit of that with Ahsoka and America at the end when they're going very fast, and then you get the stances here, but also the stances with I love Ahsoka and Balin just like measuring each other up, you know, like just like taking a moment. I like that Ahsoka just doesn't go and then jumps over and goes. You know, I like that it's like she doesn't know his opponent. She's not even seen him fight really. She's seen the other two and she kind of knows, okay, Shin's a learner. Merrick, she fucking killed, so she didn't have to worry there. And even that Merrick, he was spinning. That was, you know what, as some of that I'm with Dylan. I don't like the designs of the Inquisitor's lightsabers like spinning like that. It did look cool. Excuse me. It did look cool in live action the way they're doing it here. So that again, it doesn't make much sense, but and like you said, the way she took him out was very Maul-like, where it was just kind of a one blow and that was it. You know, like there was some fighting, but it was just very. I was like, oh, he's not dead. Like it just hurt his armor, and then he just like started to slide. I was like, oh, but that's what I like as somebody because people were saying, oh, we got fast lightsaber fights back, which I don't know. Like people are sometimes just way too. No, but like. It's like people are just like they fucking just hate on so much stuff they forget things. Fucking Rey and Kylo Ren were fighting and jumping in waterfalls and stuff. They were doing the same move that they did tonight with Balin and the lightsaber and Ahsoka using the Force to push it. Fucking Rey and Kylo did that too. People just because they hate one film, they like forget everything else.
Ahsoka did that out of pure desperation, and I loved it because she got completely compromised in that situation. But I will say, like the biggest kicker between these lightsaber fights in the sequel trilogy is, and I feel like you could really see it because and I'm sure this is my own headcanon and not at all what they were going for, but the way that these lightsaber fights unfolded felt very much like Jedi arts. It felt like,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what it is. You have Ahsoka, you have like Skull, Haiti, and they're trained the Jedi arts, and they're fighting like that with their technique. And when you have Rey and Ben Solo, they're not necessarily trained in that.
They're not that way. Rey was
and so
trained by,
they're
like,
well,
and
exactly.
Leia.
They're fighting very, very differently. And I mean, that's okay. Like, it definitely is its own fighting style, but it feels very different. If I had to pick, I'm easily picking this fighting style because it's just it's so badass. I love it.
Yeah, you can pick the PJ sides. I just mean, like, I don't look at the fucking lightsaber fights in the sequel trilogy and say they're slow. I think that's, like, to me, like, a weird... Just because they're not Darth Maul or not, like, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Mustafar, to say they're slow, to me, that doesn't really make sense. I don't think they're, like, lumbering around like Obi-Wan and Vader in A New Hope. Like, to me, that is slow. But even then, this fight had, like, feelings of that, like Balin and Ahsoka at the beginning, where they're just... That's where you can argue that Anakin and Obi-Wan are doing, right? They're teeing each other up. They're trying to find each other's ways. That's how you can headcanon it. So I agree. I just think that somebody like, oh, they're finally back. It's like they were Rey and Kylo. Like, look at the fucking throne room. They're throwing lightsabers all over the place. They're not like it's all. So that's where I think, and I'm completely fine with this style. I like it. Like I said, I thought it was a great mix because I'm somebody that I don't love the prequel. As I've said before, the Mustafar fight is supremely overrated because Anakin and Obi-Wan are just dancing. They're just dancing.
One of the greatest choreography fights of
Too
all time.
choreographed, too much. It's like you could have a good thing, and that was too much of it. It just got to the point where it was unbelievable, where they're not in danger anymore. But all this stuff I thought was a good variety. Really like Shin and Sabine's fight. I feel like maybe we'll get there, maybe, because we're still talking about Merrick, and we'll go back to Riddle Room here because he asked one more question about Anakin. Oh, excuse me. Do you guys think that young Anakin found a door to the world between worlds, or is he just a Force ghost living? Oh, you can go back. We talked about that. Just scrub back, like I'd say, like 25 minutes. We discussed that, a whole thing about our preferences and what could happen. So, yeah, with Merrick, it's funny that we talked about last week. I was like, man, they're sure doing some signs to make it seem like he could be somebody, but we both kind of resigned on like, I think he's nobody. I think they're going to do this. And I kind of like that. I know some people might be disappointed, but for me, it's just like, I don't know. I think it's just, and for Fanboy Clay's point, Merrick was so hyped for no reason. I think the reason is, again, and in 20 years, when people grow around and they start to love the sequel trilogy, I think it's because the reason he got hyped is because everyone just discussed to death who is Snoke, who is Rey's parents, who's the relationship, blah, blah, blah. And those people were disappointed in those. Some people were disappointed in those answers. I think some of them I am, some of them I'm not. But I don't like live and die by, okay, that sucks. Like, I'm more disappointed by like Ben Solo dying and stuff like that. Like some actual real character, like going forward stuff, not just like, oh, in the past it was this guy. So I feel like that's why with Merrick, that was them trying to be like, we can get like, this could be something good. Like it could be like a fan theory we really like. But I was fine with that because, as we talked about before, if it was Ezra, that is a whole can of worms. Which fine, but that's like, I think you might need more than 4 episodes to explain, right? That's like that to me is like a season 1 cliffhanger, and then hey, we got season 2. So they didn't do that. The Star Killer one, I agree with everybody. That would have been hype. That would have been cool. But again, that's a whole nother can of worms. To okay, well, he was Vader's apprentice, and he had blah blah blah. And I actually think, and if they do a season 2, I don't know if we told this last week, I think there's something really cool if you had Star Killer who was Vader's apprentice versus Anakin's apprentice. I think there's some really cool story to be told there. But again, we only got 4 episodes, and we still like, if we, and I know some people complain about this, if it was just Ahsoka on Adventures and that's it, then I'd be fine with it. But you got Ahsoka, you got Hera, you got Sabine, you're going to have the villains still popping off. You're going to have Thrawn come at one point. There's already too much that this is the perfect amount of storylines they're starting to end. Look at Merrick, this little henchman, cool guy. He got killed. He was just a magic Dathomir witch project, right? That's great. That's fine. That ends that story right there. And the good thing is, like, he can come back at any point, right? Like that design, because couldn't she just like conjure up another witch dust or illusion? Couldn't she with the same armor set? Or how does that work with this Dathomir witch dust?
Wait, sorry, you're saying that she conjured up Merrick?
Well, what is he then?
Well, I don't know.
He looks like the Dathomir magic, right?
No, he's not the Dathomir magic.
He's all green, and he's like, then what is he?
He didn't go all green, but he's
he did. No, when he cut,
he definitely didn't.
When he got cut, green stuff came out of him. That's what I'm telling you. The episodes are dark. Watch it. It was green. Chat, let me know if you agree, or just what are your theories as well? Like, what do you think Merrick could have been? But either way, that to me was fine. And even if someone were like, "Oh, they never explained what was going on with his body and the magic," for me, it's just like that's just like a cool Star Wars thing off to the side, you know? Like that's Fanboy Clay says it was Dathomir magic. Katie says it was Dathomir magic as well, and I was thinking the same thing. So for me, like, we'll let Taylor watch it, but that to me is just like a cool thing. And if you want to look more into it, you can. And that's where I think you could bring him back. And saying Morgan resurrected him. So yeah, you could do that. To me, it's very Emotep and the Mummy-ish. That way he would always like bring back these certain like dudes all the time to fight Rick O'Connell. So I like that. I don't think it needed to be anybody. I am very intrigued, and maybe this is a good transition after once Taylor finds this thing. Now that it's like done, if it's not Ezra, it's not this. What they're going to do with Ezra is very intriguing because it went from Ezra being a MacGuffin to, hey, we got to find Ezra. He's our friend, to literally Sabine has now like unintentionally killed innocent people to get to her friend. So finding Ezra has to be a big deal now, and that has to pay off. And I don't know what they're going to do. Like I said, I don't know if they're going to alien Prometheus us and he's just going to be dead being experimented on. We've talked about it before, but to me, that was a bold plan. I've always seen some people complaining on it. I'm like, oh, to me, it was always like the thing I hated when people would complain about the fucking Star-Lord punching Thanos out. When literally in fucking Guardians 2, while Kurt Russell's talking about his whole plan, he's like, you killed my mom? First thing Peter Quill does, take out his gun, just headshots his dad. No questions. He doesn't give a fuck. They've set up Sabine to be sometimes a reckless character who can be played on emotions, which, hey, she's trained to be a Jedi. Look at the fun parallels there. And two, that's where I'm not going to get mad at this character for making this decision because, I don't know, for me, the boring decision is, okay, I'm going to destroy it. Oh, not find Ezra. It makes her so much more fascinating now that she gave them to Baylan. She gave the ball to Baylan, the map, and she knows that could likely bring Thrawn back, and her and Ahsoka had a good conversation about that, could bring Thrawn back, but she wants to get her friends. Now, I don't know if I bought Baylan's line of, oh, he's the only family he had left. I don't know if I buy that because you have Ahsoka and Hera that seem pretty friendly with her too still. So I think that was a little stretching. So they could have spent more time on that. Maybe give her a few more dialogue, back and forth to really emphasize how important Ezra was to her. It's just kind of like you have to infer that from Rebels. So again, I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but still, I thought overall it's a great scene because it puts Sabine in an interesting scenario that she made a choice that we didn't want her to make, and those well done can be the best choices for a TV show. They make characters interesting. They make you to get to do something with them. And like I said, if they don't get that map, they don't go into hyperspace. They maybe don't kill some of those dudes in those X-wings. So as they're going to hyperspace, fucking Sabine seeing these people fucking bug splattered on their car or whatever, and that's her fault. That is literally her fault. Those pilots are dead because of her. Now, maybe sure they would have hyperspace and still killed them, but if Sabine was on that ship, she would be guilt-free now, and I don't think they'll get in that, trust me. But even then, when she realized Hera's there, it was this thing of it's in the moment, she wants to get Ezra, but it was almost already seeping in of like, oh, what have I done, So I was a fan of that decision, everything. So Taylor, one, I'm not sure if you have anything to add on Merrick there, and then two, I want your opinions on Sabine's choice with Ezra, with the map, everything.
Yes, you're right. On the green, I rewatched it, and it was dark. So that would be reminiscent of the Darth Maul Savage Press kind of scenario. Then very interesting.
So that's why I think she could bring that goon back at any point then, and just kind of like
bring him back. Yeah, I immediately attributed that to being when Ahsoka was fighting that other Inquisitor and tells the Jedi, and he just like deflated or whatnot. Different scenario, I guess, altogether, but interesting, very, very interesting. And if you're gonna resurrect a guy, like, why the fuck did you resurrect an Inquisitor like this? Why didn't you go after like, not Palpatine, like maybe like Vader or something like that?
Palpatine, stuff like that. Well, I think there's something with Palpatine. Obviously, he's alive somewhere, like fucking Dark Voldemort, like a little baby version. I think Vader. I think once you turn to the light side, I don't like it, but once you turn the light side, I feel like you'd be off limits, right? Because he was. Fair. So I feel like the powerful people she could get are out of her reach or have turned to the good side. So that's why I feel like you would get some of these like lackeys, like some of these people
or something like that.
Yeah, and even Maul, it's like I wonder if there has to be sort of like you'd want to be resurrected in a way. Maybe that sounds dumb, but maybe there has to be because he's 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 not a body because he's air, but he's a body moving. Like he wants to be doing these things. He didn't like fuck off and just go to the casino, right? So that I like. There's a theory to me of like you could bring back Maul, and Maul might be like, I don't want to do this. Like he could just be American and sit there and not do anything. And to me, that's the type of stuff that I'm fine if they explain that in a comic, because that's just like a fun little side thing where Shin and Bale and I definitely want some more, even though I'm enjoying them. But yeah, what did you think of? Because we'll talk about the villains in a second. What did you think of Sabine's choice?
I loved it. I felt like it totally is a change on what the audience is expecting. I feel like you think, oh, like she's not gonna be able to destroy it. She's gonna get like, I don't know, Shin is gonna like push her from behind, and she's gonna have to retreat, and she's gonna drop the
Ahsoka's
map
gonna save
or something.
the day or something.
Yeah, or something like that. And I think, oh, that's what's gonna happen. But no, she willingly surrenders it, and it's just the whole setup was so intense because she surrenders it, and you have Balin just really talking and really swaying her over, and
Makes her a promise.
Makes a promise, and then as soon as after she relinquishes the map to Balin, then you see her like she's being choked. It's like, holy fuck, is this Balin doing it? But like Shin is just like, you fucking bitch. And I'm paraphrasing.
Not exact dialogue, but
no. But then Balin's like, Shin, that's enough, and it has to say multiple times, and she's still doing it. I'm like, fuck, this is intense. Like for a briefest of moments, I really did think, like, was Balin going to like do like some disciplinary action and like start like force electrocute or do something to Shin? And like, because I felt like if there's ever a time, like I didn't even think they were going to put binders onto Sabine. I felt like you could have seen something where Balin was like, I want another apprentice. Let's keep this going or something like that.
You could, but I think that's what I like, that we haven't seen. We've seen that before with Palpatine, and even the sequel trilogy a little bit with Snoke and Palpatine with Ben, right? Where the masters are always so vicious on their apprentices. I kind of like that Balin's not that, and I really like, because I was worried that she was getting force choke, and then Ahsoka would come back, save Sabine, and then they'd fight. I like that Balin was like, no, like I made her a promise, she's gonna come with us. I like that, adds so much to his character that he said, like, unlike your master, I'm gonna stick to my word. I love that, and it wasn't even in like a shit talking way. It was literally like he made, he's a man of his word. He's good for it. So that added a lot to that character, and it did add a lot. And that's where I like where Shin is listening to, like, sure, he did have to say stop it, but once he said stop it, and it was only a little bit of the episode, so maybe next week that could change, but she stopped and she was like, hey, this is what we're doing. I think that's better, that it shows the respect that she has for her teacher versus, oh, she fears her teacher, right? Of like him threatening violence, like, I'm gonna do this to you. It's like, okay, he said stop, this is what's right. That's getting passed on to her. So yeah, Balin, to me, I still want more. I've still said I'd want that one episode of Shin and Balin, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to just, it might be a mark down when we get there, but if they keep doing things like this, they'll help, because Shin, I think, just had lots of great moments she reminds me very much of Ben Solo in Force Awakens or Kylo Ren, where he's just like, near the end, especially with his mask off, he's just amped up and he's just wanting to fucking go. He's wanting to fight. He's wanting to play with Finn. Like, he's doing all these things, right? And same thing with Shin. Like, she just looks so excited to get to this point where, oh, I can fight this person. And now I do think she almost went like a little too easy on Sabine, because I was like, why are you running away from these bullets? Why aren't you deflecting? Why aren't you like force pushing her? Like, Shin was like running.
It's to draw her away, right? Draw her away from Ahsoka.
And that's what I was hoping for, because at one point they did turn and she just pushed her. So I was like, okay, they didn't like make her look real dumb or bad overall at the end. So I just like that she's a pit bull, but on a leash. And, bad pit bull. I shouldn't say that, because pit bulls aren't bad dogs. She's just like a Tasmanian devil on a leash where, okay, she can go buck wild, but if her master pulls back, like a horse, okay, she's going to stop. And that's what I really like so far. And so far, there's no animosity to her, like, oh, Shin's going to turn and kill Balin and be like, it's my time now. Like, and I know especially Kirkland likes that with the Sith stuff, and I'm all down for that, but I like that they're Sith adjacent. So it's like the same way that I hope when Rey's movie comes out, it's like, okay, we're going to do the Jedi Order, but let's change some things. One, sex should be a thing, but like, they failed, let's change some stuff up. I would assume, and I don't even know Balin thinks he's a Sith, but whatever the method is, it's similar to Ahsoka, where, okay, those methods didn't work. Being a fucking just really hard on your apprentice in the worst ways. I'm not saying he's probably hard. He's probably harder in some ways. I think it's good to have that character maybe broaden his horizons. And I agree with everybody that it felt like that from the beginning, but he does feel very much like Dark Qui-Gon, and that I'm digging that a lot. Because Qui-Gon had that sense of ethics, even with bad people. Like we've talked about this before. We did our comm tracks of like, he could have just fucked over Sebulba. He didn't have to play that game with Sebulba. He could have literally like the mind trick didn't work, but he could have made some other bet. Like,
that wasn't Sebulba, that was Watto.
Watto, sorry, yeah, he got fucked over Sebulba too. But I'm just saying, like, he was very honorable, which he shouldn't have been, with the law, with the Hutts, with the slave situation. He stuck to his word with all that, you know? So that's where I really like that. I love Balin's fight style in here. He was a fucking powerhouse. Like, he was some of those Inquisitors that are just big. I don't think we've seen that. Like, Adam Driver's a tall guy, but I always said Adam Driver fought like a scarecrow. He was just swinging all over the fucking place. And that fit with Ben Solo because he's a very erratic character. Like, in live action, I'd say this is probably the closest you could say probably is Vader, but Vader was just more tanky in a way it's hard to take him down. This is a guy where it just feels like all his blows and movements are his strength stat is all the way up in a video game. Like you have to avoid him because, as you saw Ahsoka, like her hand was burnt, yes, but she could barely hold him back with her hand, and he was like, so I loved everything they did with these characters. Again, I want more, but even just the little things. And again, shout out, because he's been in good episodes. Shout out to fucking Ray Stevenson. We'll do that a bunch, you know, again, rest in peace. But this guy, talk about in Punisher, and then for me and Dexter, that's where I saw, these are the Dexter vibes where Dexter was in a lull and he came in and was a great villain in that show. He's a great villain here. I don't know what's going to happen with Thrawn and the rest of the stuff because they might get more screen time, but he's definitely climbing up. And I'm very curious what happens at the end of the series. Like I said, my worry is they just both die. It probably works out for the show if he were to pass away, but I really... because Balin, I could see having an arc where that character passes away. I really don't want Shin to go. I really don't want, and I don't want Shin to turn evil or either. We've had that so many fucking times. I would love it if he gets killed and she kind of has like a fucking death wish on Ahsoka or Sabine. And I would love if Sabine and Shin were like the new Maul and Obi-Wan, where they just like every time they saw each other just fucking hate each other and had to go. Because already in this episode, they squared each other up and they're like, Sabine was ready for round 2. So they're just like, that's why they remind me of Knights of the Republic, because Knights of the Republic, there was 2 types of Sith. There was the Sith, like, very culty, and then there was just, like, Darth Malak, where it's like, hey, I got 50 Sith on the ship, I'm going to press a button, and they're just going to come out and try to kill you. They're like these Sith assassins, and that's, I know what Inquisitors kind of are. I just don't like them in the time period, but everything they did with the villains in this episode was, I think, pretty much a home run for me here.
So, you see... what am I trying to say? You have Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. He's in his
not Ben
last Jedi. Kylo Ren. He's not tickling with joining the light side or anything like that. He's like full on, like just killed Snoke, and he sees Rey and Shin. Which path? Which one is he pursuing?
I think it'd be a thing where Rey would turn him down and he'd like go with Shin, but he'd be one that Rey connection. Because remember,
no, I think he'd see Shin and be like,
no.
Oh.
The reason I counter you is because remember in Rise of Skywalker they established that him and Rey are a dyad in the Force. They're like Bastila and God, what's my boy, Darth Revan. So they're kind of like connected no matter what. Like that's the thing. By the Force, it's kind of connecting them, maybe because they're related too. But like that's the thing where I think Kylo Ren wants what he can't have. He is his father's love. He took my father's love. Rey, Luke as his master. I think that's the thing, that he would like have an arranged marriage with Shin, but he'd want Rey because he couldn't have her. That would be the thing, you know? Because I feel like it's just too easy for him that way. But she'd make a great Knight of Ren. Maybe she was. Maybe she's in there. She could. You never know. We didn't see their faces, so
yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about them this episode?
I really, really enjoyed Shin's character in this episode. I think she's terrifying, and just the amount of like tension that she brings into the screen when she's especially squared off against Sabine Wren. It was just very, very powerful. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see where it kind of goes. It's interesting because she almost showed either it was concern or realization that she was outnumbered at the moment Merrick died. I'm sure it was just concern for being outnumbered, but her expression really sold me there. And then
And this was like the meanest we've seen her too. Yeah, because I feel like the first episodes, I didn't think like, oh, she's good, but it was just like it could go either way. She could be a Sith-like character. She could be someone that's redeemed. She just felt like she was listening a lot. But this episode, she felt very determined of like, I want to kill these people and get this map. Like she felt like she was ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, she absolutely did. And I loved every little bit of that. And I really enjoyed it too when she shows up and Ahsoka starts to tweak into the dark side a little bit here and is like, Sabine, like she's thinking Sabine got killed. And she just like force whips Shin into the rocks.
Slam
like,
dunks
holy
her.
shit. Yeah, which also shout outs to Ahsoka earlier because she force lifts a guy and puts him into the path of like laser fire and then force whips him out. Just brutal. That's not really the Jedi way, but she's no Jedi, so
Nope.
yeah, just great stuff. Shin just got an absolute beating in this episode, though. But absolutely terrifying. Yeah, Balin, very, very, very just commanding on screen. Really, really liked him as a villain in this episode. And the way he's talking to Ahsoka and everything, and just how he really is being questioned on multiple accounts now by Morgan Elsbeth because she's like, what was that? Is that like not fear?
No, she said because he said
he says experience.
Yeah, because he said that I'm paraphrasing, but they got to start moving quickly. Like they got to get on this. That like time's against them. And then she says, "Yeah, is that fear I'm sensing?" And he says, "No, experience." So, but still, it shows some sort of. I don't think there's going to be a turn. I really don't want them to be. I'm really would like if any of these characters die. Let's not go the Reva route. Let's just fucking make them die as bad guys. Like I don't need every Sith. So yeah, they have an interesting dynamic that I do want more on.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much more to explore, and I don't care for these fan theories like, oh, Baylan Skoll was Plo Koon's other apprentice before Ahsoka. It's like, God, just chill. Not everything is tied together.
Din Gargalin or whatever was he was fucking Yoda's apprentice, wasn't he? So goddamn.
He was. I was gonna say if Plo Koon was the one who was in that hallway scene in Mando season 2, then I would guarantee then they'd probably spin Baylan Skoll as Plo Koon's apprentice or something. But I think after our dialogue today, it pretty much confirms it. It's just the way he addresses it too, and I know we got it in the trailers, but he's like, "Oh, Anakin spoke very highly of you," and she's like, "Oh, I never mentioned you." Like everyone in the Order knew of Anakin, and little still alive would know what he'd become. And the way he was just throwing shade at her, how she's just like her master, death and destruction, all this stuff, and it's just making her pissed off. It was really
Which I didn't understand because like, what's he referring to? Like, what's the death and destruction Ahsoka is like left behind?
I don't know, but he's just really getting under her skin, and it was working. It was really, really working.
It worked. I was just like, I was trying to think of like, I don't think she's like a distract. Like, I don't think she's one of these characters. I'm trying to think back of like, what has she done that was like, oh, you really were risky there. Maybe in this show it'll happen, but it's fine. It's just trash talk. So
yeah, I stand firm or not firm. I stand happy in the fact that my prediction was right, that we were going to get that Baylan fight scene with Ahsoka here, right, but it definitely was not underwhelming by any means. I feel like it was a great just continuation of this narrative, just bridging where we got to go to, and it does make me wonder what's going to happen, like because of what happened with Rey, and it's very unfortunate. My condolences. I think it definitely fits though for the character to be written out now in some way. Like save it though. Like I can't say save it. Like what's done is done. They've written his story no matter what. But I hope that his story goes up to that final episode. Like I don't want him to be done like cheesily. I want him to go out like with a very well written ending, and just to do that character justice in a way that really makes sense. But I totally agree. Keep Shin alive. We get these new characters like your Ben Solo and whatnot, and they kill him off, and it's just sick and tiring. I want them to stay alive. They can keep Shin as a mercenary for a higher Force user out there, train the Jedi arts, or have her get a new apprentice or something like that. I don't know. There's so many different avenues.
Yeah, and it's like to me, because I know people might go like, oh, well, where's she in the sequel trilogy? All of Rebels has been, where were they during the original trilogy? You know, like so many characters. So it's like a thing that I don't like, but it's like, we've done it already. You can do the same thing with the sequel trilogy and say, okay, well, this character was around. Same thing as Grogu. It's like, well, if Grogu didn't die, where was he during the sequel trilogy, right? Well, maybe he's off to a different galaxy, whatever. So I'm fine if she, and it doesn't even matter. She could like die a couple of years before Force Awakens or something, right? So it's like, I'm fine. I hope they keep these characters around. If there's those rumors of Ahsoka season 2, I would hope that Filoni would be smart enough to be like, okay, let's let's do that, like let it happen. So, oh God,
Yeah.
no. If Shin survives, she needs to be part of that cult on the Shadows of Sith. that one on Shadows. Okay, sorry, I
That'd
thought
be
you were
pretty
trying
cool.
I thought you were gonna sound Exegol. I'm like, oh no. I don't want my girl just to end up in the crowd at Exegol. Like that's a sad fate to go to. And speaking of Shadow of Sith, it's funny, like we're going way back to the beginning of the episode, but I was so Clay thinking for me because I was gonna talk about, but we went another route. This Anakin the Ahsoka thing could be very similar to the brief conversation that Luke and Anakin had in that. Remember where he saw him in like a very
remember that,
weird
yeah.
sort of vision sort of way where it wasn't a Force ghost, but it wasn't exactly just like it definitely happened. So that's because it was like wasn't he like after Sith Hall or like one of the artifacts, like he was in some very Force sensitive place, and that's where it got triggered, right? So the same thing as this, the Dathomir Witch. Maybe there's some in the waters. Hell, who knows? Maybe there's a fucking Jedi temple under those waters. Maybe that planet got flooded or something, right? So I could see it being something like that with Ahsoka too, where it's like the spirit and essence of Anakin, so it is him, but it's not him in a way that would affect anything. But they definitely, not that we want to retread, but they chose him not to have a Force ghost blue for a reason, because if he was blue, we'd be done talking. It'd be like, okay, he's a Force ghost, that's fine. Like he's just gonna talk to her, but it's something else. So. But yeah, I hope, and even then, like Shin and Balin, like these are type of officers with Rey's passed away. Then these are characters that, yes, I do want to see then in comic books or something. Then these are ones that I will go, okay, I'll seek out to see because obviously Rey can't do anymore, and we'll see what happens with these 4 episodes. We still got a lot potentially going on depending on Thrawn's size. But anything else on these two?
I don't think so.
Yeah, and then just my last point, I think I'll look at my notes just for the overall episode. I think at times this was probably Rosario Dawson's best episode as Ahsoka because she got to, there's a couple smiles and like Ahsoka attitude, which I do get that sometimes she's not as, and people have this like complaint that she's maybe like robotic or she's not like that. Like Ahsoka kind of has like I won't say fun loving, just like a friendly sort of personality, at times very welcoming, where Rosario Dawson's plays character is very shut off, but one, Filoni's there, so I think he's telling her to do that, and two, it's supposed to be an older Ahsoka, right? So she's more wise and almost a bit more zen, but I thought there's a couple just smirks and moments and stuff where I was like, okay, this feels still similar to the Ahsoka of old, so that was good. And there's a time, too, when very beginning of the episode, Sabine's talking like, hey, we got to get moving, they might find this thing, and then Ahsoka says, well, if they don't find it, we don't find it, maybe no one should. And then Sabine goes, well, if we do that, Ezra would be there forever. There'd be no getting him back. And she goes, well, maybe that's what would be best. I'm paraphrasing. But at first I was like saying that why some people might be getting mad at the Sabine thing. But at first I was like, oh, like, would she do that? Like, would she just like sacrifice Ezra and everything? And then I went, well, as like in this show, you have to learn that. And they should definitely write more. And I think they will to show why she would do that. But in Rebels, that's exactly what she did with Kanan, right? We learned like she gave that conversation to Ezra, very much how Thrawn, that whole death, which you go check out the Rebels retro, Kanan dies and the Sith are celebrating, or the Empire celebrating, and Thrawn's pissed because like, no, his death was not worth all that damage. You really fucked us up. And she's going the same way of his, but it's the verse of his life wouldn't be worth all the damage because you would all die and X, Y, and Z would happen. So that's where at first I was like, oh, would she just sacrifice Ezra? But we've seen that she would. She like if it means Thrawn coming back in another war. Unfortunately, I do think for Ezra that, and like she stayed this episode, she would choose not to bring Ezra back, and unfortunately, that's the bet he laid. So I liked that, and that set up what happened later on with Sabine. So I liked Ahsoka in this episode. I know there's a joke because I know Fanboy Clay said, and other people have said it too, that the episode, the show's always somebody else featuring Ahsoka. I do agree that she doesn't feel like the main character. You probably just could have called the show Rebels and have the live action one that might fit better. But she's the name. It's Rosario Dawson, so maybe near the end she's a bit more of the screen time. I think episode 5 will probably be that way. And then not much on Hera this episode. They gave Jason the I got a bad feeling line, so that was fun, and probably just more insinuation that he's a Jedi. Classic Hera stuff. They tell her not to go. She's gonna go. She's got the squad. She's got that guy from Mandalorian and Boba. I can never remember his name. Is like a lieutenant officer for the new Empire, or the new Empire, the New Republic. So that was cool to see that crossover, but it wasn't in your face. And luckily, she survived the hyperdrive. So not much. Again, I am really hoping near the back half, or if there is a season 2, I hope we get more of Winstead as Hera, because what we've gone, I think, is good, but each episode, it feels like we kind of get like 5 minutes with her, and that's about it. So that's kind of disappointing in that factor. So I hope down the line there is more coming up. So any thoughts on Hera or Ahsoka this episode?
Yeah, Hera just bad call. Bad call. The whole time that slipspace ship was just firing up, or hyperspace ship was firing up, I was just thinking, man, I'm getting what is it called? Haldo maneuver vibes right now, and I think this is not going to end well. And sure enough, like she lost half of her squad. It was really cool to see Carson Teva
Holdo, not Haldo.
Holdo.
It's a Holdo maneuver. Yeah.
Holdo maneuver. Seeing Carson Teva pop back up, I was really excited for that. That was a nice surprise. But seeing the ghost as well was very cool. But yeah, Hera was I just feel like it was reminiscent of Rebels. Her leadership can sometimes be questionable because she went on a mission she wasn't supposed to go on, and it resulted in people's lives. And things could have been
those
a
people
lot
died
more,
for nothing.
They died for nothing. Things could have been a little bit more prepared if how is she gonna go back now? We lost the ship. We lost Ahsoka. We lost Sabine. We lost all our leads.
It's Sabine's fault. She gave it.
They don't know that. They don't know that. At this point, it's all Hera's fault. The New Republic's going to bring her back. Like, oh, you went on an unsanctioned mission. You lost like 2 of our pilots, resources, and you have no leads now. And we're supposed to just believe you that there's some ship that just disappeared. So it's not looking good for her right now. But I think it's cool too because you get to see Jason kind of popping off. Like I got a bad feeling, and it's just it sits because it's just you feel the darkness of everything that unfolded here in this episode. And then Ahsoka, couldn't agree more though with what you said. I think this is definitely one of our strongest performances is Ahsoka. So you just get to see the emotion pouring out from her. You get to see so much, just levels of trust in her apprentice and just different layers developing for our character here in the situation where her past confronts her future is confronting her, and she's all trying to deal with both in the present, which I think is really, really crazy of a dynamic to have to put up with. But just absolutely wild.
Anything else? I'll check my notes, but I think I've hit on everything. But anything about characters or any random stuff?
Well, I wanted to circle back because I've realized something, and maybe it's completely unrealistic, but Vader learns about the world between worlds when he sees Ahsoka get pulled in. So maybe he does something there. I'm not spitballing another conversation, but I'm just touching base on it.
But that would be Vader learning that at that point. This would be Anakin learning that though, right?
Well, that would be Vader. So maybe he does something, and maybe he pops his head out to Anakin and is like, kill Palpatine. Don't do it. Don't kill Mace.
That's all he says. Don't kill Mace. And Anakin's like, what the? This is like 2 years before he kills Mace. And he's like, what the fuck is he talking about? Don't kill Mace. But
2 years before.
Yeah. It's like BVS Flash. Am I late? Is it too late? There could be something there, and that's where I think you could get your shot of Ahsoka versus Anakin in the Vader suit, right? Like you get Vader and Ahsoka going at it, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. There's gonna be a lot to break down next week, so I don't know about that. So we'll see. Anything else?
Oh, I'm trying to think what else we got in here. We got Hu Yang, who's just popping off.
Always great.
Always great. Yeah. Seeing Sabine Wren in her Mandalorian armor, which is very, very cool. What else do we got? I'm just scrubbing through because I just want to make sure we have everything covered. They destroy the map afterwards, so there's that. And the hyperspace ring just like shoots out into hyperspace. So are you thinking we're going to see Thrawn next episode?
So if it is a full team episode, yes. If it is specifically just Ahsoka and maybe / Ahsoka Anakin centric episode, no. Because I think you end there. Because that to me all depends on how much time you got. Because I think it'd be really weird if you do an Ahsoka and Anakin themed episode and then it just ends with them arriving and Thrawn's like, oh, here I am. Like I feel like this Ahsoka Anakin episode, if they want to do that, what my pitch would be is that they should make it like a bottle episode, and the fact that you could watch it by itself with or without the show. Like this to me should be more about their dynamic, their relationship, the past, the present, the future, meaning AK Luke, and like you said, possibly Leia. I feel like that episode should be about them. And especially because we're coming in with all this knowledge, there are people that all they know is a paper, a note on a paper that says, oh, Ahsoka's Anakin's apprentice. They don't know the backstory. They don't know the history. So I feel like if it's a full teams episode, I feel like you can't, unless it's an actual like full hour and stuff, which I don't think it will be if it's like the Disney Plus usual length. I don't think if you do an episode featuring everybody, you can give us much closure on that relationship. So I'll say Thrawn is a no if it's a centric episode. If it's everybody, then yeah, I could see it ending him being the last shot. But I kind of hope not. I hope it is. I think the last shot of this episode should be Ahsoka and Anakin having their kind of farewell, because I don't know about Force Ghosts, but just some sort of closure, and then going off, and then just and especially because I feel the other thing it should be is not only about Anakin. It should be about two things. Ahsoka walking away. She walked away from the council. She walked away from Anakin. Then she walked away from Sabine. So he should parlay some of his mistakes and some of his knowledge. And two, as much as I don't always love it, Anakin is her master, and it's a master giving knowledge to an apprentice. What is Ahsoka trying to do right now? She's trying to take on an apprentice. She's trying to be a teacher once again. And he can talk about the ways he even failed. Like, that's what I mean. Like, there's so much juice and meat on that bone that is at least you could do half an hour of that by itself. So I think next week, I'm hoping will just be by themselves, Visions talking out. I hope there's no just big, fiery lightsaber set pieces. Like, that's my and there's the flip side. When I say I want to see Anakin or Vader and Ahsoka in live action face off, that is the flip side. That is I don't need. Why Avengers Endgame could in the middle of the movie go back to all the cool places of the MCU? Because the first hour and the last hour were not about that. The middle hour was all, oh, we're having a fun time on a time travel roller coaster. These episodes are like 28, 30 minutes. You don't have time to go back to Mustafar and have a good time. Go back, like we were talking about Kamino, or go back or anywhere, and like it's Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka on a mission. You don't have time for that with 8 episodes and how long these episodes are. So I'm hoping it's more character-centric and not more look at this, trip down memory lane, stuff in that realm. So that's where I am. Do you think we see Thrawn next week, to answer your own question?
I think there's a chance we could see him at the very end of the
In the world between worlds.
In the world between worlds, yeah, because we have now hit that threshold of the trailers. All the trailers that we had, all their footage, to my knowledge, because I scrubbed through them, have been shown in the up to these 4 episodes, minus the one of Thrawn walking on the bridge of that hyperspace ring. So that makes me think we're going to get that in the next episode. Now, I mean, I love it when we get to this point in a show. This is always my favorite part, because when we've surpassed what was shown in the trailers, and now it's just completely uncharted territory, and we're going to be getting things that we don't know about. So it gets me really, really excited.
Until the Disney Plus page drops, like here's a preview for the rest of the season. It was so good.
Yeah,
they did, because they did that with WandaVision stuff. But so that's going to be interesting. So yeah, next week, who knows what we're going to be talking about. Either way, whether it's a solo episode, whether it's the whole teams, whatever it's going to be a juicy episode. It's going to be an episode that good, bad, or indifferent. We'll see. I messaged Kirkland already. I'm like, you got to catch up, get on that one. So we'll see if we can get him on that, because I think he could be a good middle person, depending how things go down next week. And yeah, like I said, loved this episode. I thought they did a great job. In a bottle, always like it. Now for me, it's all about the execution and what happens next, because they could easily stumble it. But I think overall, like so far, if I'm grading the first half of the season, I wouldn't say 2 thumbs up, but thumb and a half. Like, I think they're doing really well so far if this pace continues. So I hope these episodes continue like this, and we're just happy. And then I hope it's very much like Mando season 2 or Andor, where everyone's, well, maybe there's like a little thing you didn't like, maybe episodes a little weaker, but overall those felt like such great experiences when you're done, like, oh yeah, fucking Star Wars, and that's what I hope. I hope it's not the Boba Fett finale or the Kenobi finale, where it's like, oh, we like some stuff, but then there's other stuff we really don't like. And I'm not saying it has to be a perfect episode. I'm just saying I really hope they can stick the landing, because right now the stuff they're putting out is really good. As far as I guess I enjoy the episodes. I didn't love them, but this one I love. So I'm really hoping we don't stumble here. So any last thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I am cautiously proceeding at this point, but I love Star Wars so much, it's going to be pretty hard to kind of ruin it for me. So I just, what we got in this episode blew my mind, and I'm just super excited. And I know I got Thrawn still coming, so that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next week for definitely a juicy influx episode. Hopefully we'll be going live right away. Taylor, you don't got any more kid birthdays or anything, do you?
No kid
Okay.
birthdays.
Let's hope. That'd be great. If we can go live right away, oh, the juice could be flowing like the fucking shining blood elevator, but it's going to be just Star Wars juice. So until next time, it'll not be boring. May the Force be with you.
Always.